Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Columbus, Ohio-born jazz pianist Micah Thomas. He opened up about his 2020 debut CD called Tide. It's a live album, and it's quite important during a time of no live jazz as the coronavirus pandemic stretches on. He started playing songs on the piano by ear at the age of 2 and has gone on to make jazz his life. He's got a great story. Enjoy.
So anyway, hey, thanks for taking a minute out. I'm trying to break everything up with all of the jazz musicians with having some of these interviews because, obviously this is such an extraordinary time, and it's probably good to talk about the music and have an oasis away from things for a bit.
Yep.
So what I want to ask you is, and this is a two-part question just because of what we're going through with COVID-19 now in this world. Talk to me about your new CD, Tide, and talk to me about having new material out around the time that we're all in quarantine going through the coronavirus.
Okay. This is my first album, and, first albums are important in general because that's my only thing that I'm putting out there in terms of that big part of, what represents me. And this is some of my first good compositions. I spent a lot of time writing compositions, but they only started getting good at a certain point. And so this is kind of the first, and this is also the first band that I've had that really had a special chemistry together. So in all those ways, this is an important album for me. I'm not so much a guy for having a non-musical message within the music. For me, the music is the message. And in terms of why it's important and why all music that is released during this period is important is because right now that's all the music we have. So, I don't know, just even my relationship with recorded music has become different. I can't listen to any live music anymore, so suddenly I'm listening to so many more albums than I'm used to doing, and also this album is a live album too, and for me I wanted it to be a live album because of how important playing with other people in the live setting is. So in that way, I hope this album also is represents how important I feel playing together is, and I hope that we get back to that once all this stuff is over.
Well, I guess that's the thing about this time period with released material. It's bittersweet. I think it's kind of nice that there are live recordings so that, we can kind of stay in that moment, so to speak.
Definitely.
So you're clearly, as you stated, from Ohio. Talk to me a little bit about your childhood and how jazz became your life.
Yeah, like with anything, there are a few people that I can point to, that were really important. First of all, my dad has a huge record collection of all types of music, so that's the first exposure I had to classical music, jazz music, Indian music, rock music, you name it. So, he introduced me to all the greats, and then I've had a few really great teachers. I had a teacher in Florida where I was at for 5 years when I was young, called Wes Hammer. I had a great teacher in Ohio who passed away a few years ago, Mark Flugie, and Hamilton Hardin, Christian House. Both of those guys were in Ohio when I was in Ohio, and just following their example, and then meeting Sullivan Fortner when I was in high school, just following their example and looking up to them and trying to, and having their stuff internalized in me, and then I started hearing about how great New York was, and I realized that I wanted more of a community, and I could find it there, and then I moved there for college.
So it's probably strange for you, you went to Juilliard, you've been in New York, and now you're back home. What is it like to be separated probably from what your second home is at this point right now?
it's weird. I mean, I've come home a lot, so it's not particularly weird to be home. But what's weird is the feeling that what makes New York right now is not there anymore. And to some extent, the whole thing is in jeopardy. I mean, you saw that Billy Joel just donated $25,000 to Smalls, by the way.
Oh no, I didn't. Yeah, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, which was cool, and it's nice that I think I suspect Jazz and Lincoln Center, and I suspect Smalls and Metro will figure something out.
Yeah,
they're both, maybe the Village Vanguard, anything that's like almost a cultural staple. But a lot of the scene is it's done now, and the question is whether it can come back or whether it's even. Well, the whole thing seems there was a fragility to the jazz scene even before this happened. That so I think for me and for every musician, no matter if they just moved to New York or if they've been there 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, like something, it's going to be different, and we're not sure what. So it's a very disorienting feeling.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to something a little bit cheerier here. And I mean, no, you're fine. No, and that's the way. That's why I'm doing this. I mean, there's got to be a level of this that's cathartic to get it out. And I appreciate the rawness, and it's just the way it is. But tell me, what do you like the best about being a musician? Not only a working musician in the biggest city for jazz on the planet, but just in general, what's the best thing about it for you?
The best thing about it for me is that I've kind of started realizing that my music is me, and that I just started realizing that when I'm listening to other musicians, I can tell what their personalities are by their music. And through their music, they reveal things about themselves that maybe they even try to hide, like person to person. But the thing is, it's music, and music is beautiful. So it's a way of people being intentionally and even unintentionally themselves, and it's all translating into something that's beautiful. And so for me, I kind of realized how much music is just a way to express who I am honestly, and it being okay because it's going to end up sounding good. And just a means of expression that I'm not able to have in normal life. At this point, it's an extension. That kind of communication is just a very important extension of how I can be myself, of how I am myself.
This is going to come to an end. There is going to be live music again. And my question is this: when you do get back into that live capacity, in the most ideal sense, you're back in New York and you're performing, what do you hope the musician on stage and the audience member in the crowd realizes about this time of absence? That they come back with something revelatory or something poignant about this time?
I think what I hope is that we really miss what we have lost. Because if we miss it, then we can appreciate it, and it can have maybe even a revival when we get back into things. It's very precious to be able to be in the same room with other people and see magic happen right in front of us. And so maybe this can. I was reading about in the 1940s and 50s when Thelonious Monk and Bud Powell and Coleman Hawkins and Ben Webster and Charlie Parker would be doing the after-hours jam sessions at Minson's or in Cecile's Hotel or whatever, and looking and thinking about how new and fresh everything seems. I don't think musicians today are even I think there's been kind of a gradual dulling of the excitement of the feeling of newness in the music, and I think that this Corona thing and the quarantine is giving us the opportunity to reappreciate and revalue something that is now going to be kind of new in a way and a privilege again. Something fresh and exciting and something we've missed. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And what you're talking about is the time period around World War II. There was also cults and weird things and racism and a lot of things that were getting in the way of these guys. You're totally right. This is the first time I've heard this perspective. It's fresh, and that's one of the reasons why I'm trying to discuss this with musicians, because I think it's a great incubator to think on, and hopefully it materializes. But that's a great answer. And my final question to you is this, on a personal note, so we can get to know you a little bit. Everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, and your fan base, those that buy your album, but you're living your life. Who do you think you are?
I think I'm someone who has been blessed with some great people to look up to, some ability, and a lot of passion for this music, and blessed by a great community of people in New York. And, someone who, is born in an age, who is situated in an age that isn't, it isn't an age where this music is, as popular as it used to be, but it's at an age where we have access to everything, and there are, way more possibilities in terms of, movements and information and communication and things changing. So, that's my answer.
That's a great answer. Micah, thank you for taking some time out. Stay safe out there in Ohio. I look forward to seeing all you guys get back into it in New York, because, obviously, everybody's missing it now, and hopefully we're going to get beyond this curve. Things will start getting back to, some semblance of normalcy.
Yeah, thanks for the call, man.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest cats in Ohio, New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Micah for his time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Davino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.